Well, welcome to November, alums. It's so good to be with you again and to be in our third session with the executive director of our foundation, Tom Bevan. And just been exciting to have an opportunity for me to introduce him to you as a vital part of our team and our development in our alumni office. Tom gives us, because of his gifts and his skills, the opportunity to work with our alums and other people who maybe aren't alums, but they have a love for this university and they want to be involved in remembering the university and a lot of their long-term plans. So whether you're a young alum today or whether you're a little bit further down the road in life, I think this conversation today is for all of us. But Tom, today we want to talk a little bit about charitable planning and the role that charitable gift planning plays in your estate and your legacy giving. Again, going back to that first session, this is all a part of somebody's story.
It's all part of somebody's story. How do we perpetuate that story?
And how does that story live on? So how does that happen throughout this?
Thank you, Terry. And it's, this is kind of the fun part for me. It's I love, sitting down with alums, with individuals, hearing their story, which often gives you a clear sense of, okay, how all of this came about, all the different things we're involved in. And we've both had alums that we've dealt with that have had one business venture and then another and then another, and just how the Lord, continued to reinvent them a little bit through their career. And as they did all of that, they accumulated more and more pieces and parts, if you will, to their estate that will be treated differently by the tax code when they're liquidated. And so we help them put together an effective estate and legacy plan that does for their families and their friends what they want to assure is done. But then...
Can I interrupt you for a second first?
Yeah.
I want for our alums to understand, and this is what I love about Tom. The very first interest of Tom in working with people is not about our university. It's about working with those people and working with those families to first care for them.
Yeah.
And I guess we just really believe that if we do an effective job of doing that, because of tax opportunities and the tax relief kind of things, the university can be taken care of
We'll be taken care of. And it's interesting because the fiduciary rule, the fiduciary standard that the foundation operates by uniquely, it's a separate entity for that reason. It operates by a fiduciary standard. Fiduciary standard, by definition, puts the interest of the client first.
Yes.
So we have to do that by law. But guess what? Luke 16 said that a long time before there was a fiduciary standard. That Luke 16 makes it very clear that our true manna, our true treasure is relationships. And like I believe that if we have a proper trust relationship, God knows our needs. The Holy Spirit's a whole lot better impress upon hearts of what He needs. Right. He knows our needs even better than we do. And the Holy Spirit will direct those hearts to give in accordance with what they have. And so, my job, if you will, our job as a foundation is to come alongside those individuals who have accumulated all of those moving parts, all of those different elements of wealth, if you will, and help them do with them what they have in their heart to do, again, both for their families and then ultimately for the ministries they've been impacted by. And it's just interesting because by the time you get to that discussion, it's pretty fundamental who they want to make the beneficiary of their estate charitably, because it's the ministries that their family's been impacted by. Certainly LaTerna University, could also be their church. Many of our folks are aviation, so there's a lot of aviation ministries out there that are benefiting. Any given vehicle that I've executed in the last 10, 15 years has always included other ministries to some degree like that. But one of the key things that we bear in mind when we do all of that is another dynamic that kind of gets back to the importance of estate planning like we talked about before. On average, our wives, Jill and Laura, will outlive us by 10 to 15 years. Well, how are you going to take care of Jill? How am I going to take care of Laura? Okay, you plan Social Security, you plan your retirement assets, but in all of its cumulative amount, how am I going to make sure that Laura is cared for 10, 15, maybe more years beyond my passing? And so when we talk about charitable gift planning, the reason we do that we consider that need is because there are charitable giving options that can first be an income driver, an income engine, if you will, to the wife, to the family, for a period of years to life. So the neat thing about the tax code right now is we can do things through things like charitable remainder trust. I'm a big fan of charitable remainder trust, what's called a CRUT. You've heard me talk about CRUTs. A charitable remainder unit trust is a means by which tax-exposed assets can be liquidated free of capital gains tax by their annual revaluation moving forward through the income period can be a good hedge against inflation as well, which is always a dynamic everybody, financial professionals like myself, have to factor in when you're considering retirement income. But you can produce through those charitable giving vehicles, charitable remainder trusts, meaningful income for a spouse or for the two of us while we're alive together. And at the end of the payment period or life, whichever is opted for, then becomes a remainder, what's called a remainder gift, remainder interest gift to LaTourney University and other ministries. And that's the fun part, is to be able to now, having heard someone's story and seen all the different things they have going on, say, okay, now let's go to the whiteboard, let's figure out what you need for retirement and what your wife may then need with the Social Security implications that you're passing. Okay, so that's identified. What would you like to do then? Secondly, for your children and your friends. And then thirdly, what role does charitable giving play? And a charitable giving vehicle, like a CRUT, for example, can be a means to an end. So it's a way in which, whether with maybe the proportion of what you have accumulated or just a portion of what you've accumulated, take that amount, put it into a charitable giving vehicle that can be a steady source of income to your spouse or for the two of you, and then at the end be a gift to the university. And what's interesting is right now, with all this COVID stuff, there are some provisions to giving this year, tax advantages to giving this year that sunset at the end of this calendar year. But there's other provisions that won't go away at least until 2024. So there's about 3.5 years here where we really are incentivized. We are incentivized to make people know about it, and the folks, if you will, the constituency we deal with and the friends are incentivized to know about what they can do so they can take advantage of those provisions before they sunset in 2024. For example, individual retirement accounts have now been tweaked a little bit by the IRS. And just one example, an IRA used to be able to be passed on to a non-spouse, and they can get income from it then for a period of years forward, for an undefined period of years. Now the IRS is saying, no, you pass an IRA on to somebody other than a non-spouse, special needs children aside for the moment, that has to be liquidated in 10 years. In other words, we want our tax money. It's been growing tax-free. We want that tax from that amount within 10 years. However, you can put that IRA into a CRUT at your passing. Now it can be a source of income for non-spouse beneficiaries for an interminable period of time. So it's things like that, not to get too much into the weeds, but it's things like that it's the puzzle pieces you kind of have to assemble. Yeah. And it's a lot of fun. And the power that that can have for ministries. Think about it. The reason we started this foundation, again, as a separate entity, was so that we could engage these discussions. The university essentially, we understand the term as believers vicarious. The LaTourney University can essentially live vicariously through the foundation and affect these vehicles for our constituency. And by our being a supporting organization for the university can now have visibility in a proper way to what may be coming their way from some of these different things that we're working on. And you know better than I the power for the university in terms of master planning. I've been in university settings, academic settings now, as you know, for about 10 years. Been a cabinet level officer. The power for the university to be able to say in the next 5 years, the next 10 years, the next 20 years, we just don't have expectancies, things that we hope are going to happen, all things being equal. But we actually have vehicles executed on the part of our foundation that we know are going to have remainder interest to this amount.
So we started back in September really with the idea of a story. And through these different vehicles and different opportunities that people can, their story can live on.
It can.
And it should.
And it should,
Yeah.
exactly. It
Yeah.
should. If we read Deuteronomy in the literal sense, which obviously we should, God's intention was for all that he did in their lives to survive them and their children and their children's children to the nth generation, right? And that can happen, but it's not automatic. I mean, speaking to the camera, it's not automatic. We have to assure that story is expressed in our planning. And we have to assure that our children pass that on. I'm working right now with Dave and Elizabeth. They're doing a good job all on their own, but just to really encourage them, Caden, Emily, Hudson, and Morgan, hey guys, this is what God has done in mom and dad's life, in granddad and grandma's life, and so on down the line.
Yeah. Well, our university has an incredible story, and as we head into 2021, we're going to start to celebrate that as we head into our 75th year, and we begin to really look back at what the Lord has done over 75 years at LeTourneau University. I'm so grateful in our office and our development work and with our alumni that we have somebody like Tom on our staff. If you live in Wyoming, if you live in Chicago, it does not really matter where you live. Tom is available for you. It's a service that's free.
We have resources around the country.
Yeah, we just within the last couple months completed an agreement with an individual, an alum who lives in the Chicago area, who's providing a nice scholarship down the road. And yeah, we had legal counsel there that we were able to use to make that possible. And so, folks, I just want to really encourage you to be thinking about that story and be thinking about how maybe LeTourneau University has played a part in that. And might there be an opportunity for you to continue to remember LeTourneau University long into the future. It's been so fun to be with you, Tom, these last 3 sessions. And alums, we want to wish you a very, very happy Thanksgiving and a wonderful Christmas season from your campus in Longview, Texas at LeTourneau University.